Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. Here we are.
Good morning.
Actually, this will be airing at the end of May, and we're talking about the supernatural. And you just highlighted that you're going out to get a new your driver's license renewed.
My driver's license expired this month, so I'll be heading off to get a new one, get the real ID, so I have my stack of paperwork to go prove who I am.
Is it? Do you have to take a driving test, or do you just get it renewed?
No, it'll just be a renewal. However, so we're taping this, as everyone knows, we tape this early because when this airs real time, I believe you said this is airing Wednesday, May 31st,
yeah,
right?
End of May, right.
So as this airs, I will be boarding a plane to Italy.
Yeah.
See you guys.
That's right.
Go over, see the Santa Ferraras, and spend the week in Italy. But I'm needing to make sure I get all of that documentation in place and, not on a temporary license before I get back. So got to make sure it gets done. That's why I'm getting it done early.
Yeah, beautiful. We were, that was reminding me, when we talk about the supernatural, we had a leaders retreat earlier this year in the Cayman Islands.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a place that is a foreign country. It's actually British, and you have to use you have to have a passport,
right,
to get there. If it was a U.S. owned island, generally you can do it without a passport, but this case it wasn't. So we were, on phone calls, actually with different people. And it was just a comment about, do you have your passport ready? And with that comment, a couple people went and discovered one of them was, it's expired.
Oh no.
But particularly because of the bureaucracy of it, right now, everything is kind of backed up in the system.
Very slow, right.
And there wasn't enough time to just normally send in the application, and get it done. Which, by the way, you have to surrender your passport to do that. It's expired, and I'm not going to be able to go unless I can take care of it. So, okay, research it, and they research it and found out that there's a place that you can send it to, and then they got to send it back, and so they did, but they weren't sending it back, and I guess evidently they made a mistake or they lost it or something, and it's coming up, pretty close. So it's like, well, I gotta make a phone call. So we prayed, hey, Father, he's got to get through to somebody, because right now it's, they're pretty effective at just making it electronic, and you can't talk to anybody.
Right.
He's got to talk. He's got to talk to somebody. Has got to look at this and take care of it and intervene. And so, Father, would you arrange it? And so they called this number, and no, and called this number, and no, and called this other number, and somebody answers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like, and I wasn't even supposed to answer, but what do you want? And well, I got this and this. Okay. I'll take care of it. Let me do this. Let me get this. Now, take care of it. And so, this is probably now, 8-9 days before, and he looks like he's going to get it. Well, we're on a phone call, and another person, he's talking about his experience with his passport, and this guy thought, well, I have a passport and it's fine. But after the phone call, he was talking about, hey, I got to get my passport. And his wife says, well, do you know where it is? I think it's in the spot, So he goes, it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And so now he's looking all over his house, and literally he can't find his passport.
Oh no.
Not that it was expired, he just can't find it.
But he just doesn't know where it is.
And he doesn't know where it is. And he remembers the last time he had it, but he doesn't know where it is now. And he literally can't find it, And it's like, but this one guy was saying, well, here, you do it this way and call this situation and they can take it. And he heard that, made the phone calls, and they took care of it in 5 days. And he got his passport just the day before he had to come. And so we all understood that was God's supernatural work, and even the prompting,
making the crooked places straight. Right?
Of just, hey, actually, and this is the cool thing about God's supernatural work, which is a piece of it that's really beautiful, is that God says, I know something that you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You think you know where your passport is.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't there, and it isn't here. And you aren't going to have it unless you take care of this. And I got to alert you to that, to pay attention. Then I'll give you a way to do it, and I'll make the crooked place straight, and I'll fulfill it when in the normal you wouldn't have been able to go. Right. Including, you might not even look for it till the day before, because you thought you knew.
Right.
But I got to alert you. So that's the supernatural work of God, is that I'm working all of that, and speaking to you and showing you and alerting you and helping you understand things that I know that I need to have you know, so that you have a heart to follow. And do you recognize, that's me? And when you do, we rejoice, and we did rejoice, and we rejoice not just at the end of it. Hey, got it. We rejoiced at the whole story, because God says, oh, "Let me show you this. Let me show you this. Let me speak this." And what we've learned about, by the way, bearing witness, is tell the whole story. Yes. Just don't say, "Well, I had a problem. I prayed, and God gave me a passport." No, it's way, 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 way more complete than that, and people need to hear, well, how did that work?
That's part of how you magnify him too.
Yes, yeah, and talk about that a little bit. Why does that magnify him?
That magnifies him. Magnifying. When you think of anything that magnifies it, there's a few things that are going on there. But one, it's making something big. And two, it's where your focus is. But you look at a magnifying glass. When I talk about what does it look like to magnify God, I always remind people, if you're holding a magnifying glass, when you look through it, what you're looking at is really big. And you see all the little details, right? There's so many things that are unseen that you now have the privilege of seeing. On the other side of that, if you look through the other direction on a magnifying glass, what is there is very small.
Yeah.
And so I think as we magnify God, we become small, he becomes greater.
Yeah.
We begin to see all the little details even of who he is and the intricacies of how he works. And as we share those with other people, then they see the bigness of God as well, and he is magnified.
Yep. There's an actually neat little, as we're talking about this, there's kind of a neat illustration of that. So go to John. It's in chapter 3. This is John the Baptist. Read verses John 3:22 all the way through to 36.
Sure. After these things, Jesus and his disciples came into the land of Judea, and there he remained with them and baptized. Now John also was baptizing in Aenon near Salem, because there was much water there, and they came and were baptized, for John had not yet been thrown into prison. Then there arose a dispute between some of John's disciples and the Jews about purification. And they came to John and said to him, Rabbi, he who was with you beyond the Jordan, to whom you have testified, behold, he is baptizing, and all are coming to him. John answered and said, a man can receive nothing unless it has been given to him from heaven. You yourselves bear me witness that I said, I am not the Christ, but I have been sent before him.
He who has the bride is the bridegroom, but the friend of the bridegroom who stands and hears him rejoices greatly because of the bridegroom's voice. Therefore, this joy of mine is fulfilled. He must increase, but I must decrease. He who comes from above is above all. He who is of the earth is earthly and speaks of the earth. He who comes from heaven is above all. And what he has seen and heard, that he testifies, and no one receives his testimony. He who has received his testimony has certified that God is true. For he whom God has sent speaks the words of God. For God does not give the Spirit by measure. The Father loves the Son and has given all things into his hand. He who believes in the Son has everlasting life, and he who does not believe the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God abides on him.
Yeah, which is what we've talked about in terms of that we stand condemned, and if we believe, we get transferred out of that condemnation. Otherwise, we remain there, and that's why people don't spend eternity with him. But he says, hey, don't you realize that Jesus is baptizing more than you? He says, well, that's okay, because I'm not the Christ. I'm the messenger, a messenger of the Christ, and no problem. He says that I have been sent, and in verse 29 he says, he who has the bride is the bridegroom, but the friend of the bridegroom. Okay, now he's talking about himself.
Right.
He's talking about us. We are the friends of the bridegroom, and we stand and hear him. We rejoice greatly because of his what? Voice.
Because of his voice, yeah.
I get to hear this might, this power, this truth, the source of this. He says, I rejoice at being able to hear it, and that's why I must decrease so that he can increase. Now, he's not saying here, because he's going to reiterate this, it's not because I'm nothing.
Right.
He didn't say I have to become nothing. He just says I got to be in a place where when he says I decrease, what it means is my voice decreases. I don't say I need. I don't say I want. I don't say, here's what I want you to do. He said the increase is to be able to hear what he has to say. And I rejoice at that. And he said, so I don't look at comparing result. It's really more about what do I hear that he gets to say, and I get the privilege of that.
Right.
And that's what I want. And then he says in verse 34, for he whom God has sent, he said, that's me, speak the words of God, for God does not give the Spirit by measure. In other words, because the Holy Spirit is there and going to be resident in me, my privilege is to hear. I mean, think about this. He's sending me to do what? Speak what he speaks. By definition, I have to hear it.
Right.
And that is when you say that, we must decrease so that he can increase. It's not that, well, I'm nothing, and I just, God, you go do what you're going to do. But rather, he says, put yourself in a position to hear what he has to say. You will rejoice, and then he's going to send you to speak what he has to say.
Right.
And you will fulfill the beauty of it. And he said, interesting enough, don't even look at the outcome. Look at the sender of who you are and the beauty of you get to experience what he's involved with, and you get to join him, because I'm not the bridegroom, I'm the friend of the bridegroom. So it's a great I think I'm glad you kind of raised us up, because it helps us understand what is our position, and it's not telling God what we think he should do. It's rather listening to what he wants to do, and it's a joy. So as we think about this more, he says a little bit further about the process, which is kind of cool, really how you set it up. Go to Matthew 13, 53 and 54, 2 verses, and it tells us something about this.
It says, "Now it came to pass, when Jesus had finished these parables, that he departed from there. When he had come to his own country, he taught them in their synagogue, so that they were astonished and said, 'Where did this man get this wisdom and these mighty works?'"
Yeah. So Jesus did what? He spoke truth, and they were astonished at two different things. One, the mighty works. Okay, so when Jesus is trying to speak to us and have us join him, it's not absent of the work that he wants to do.
Right.
Because, and this is where I think a lot of the church has been relegated itself into an intellectual discussion that, God is real. Yes, you're a sinner. Yes, God died for you. Yes, you must receive that and believe it, and you now have a opportunity to be with him eternally. And we kind of leave it at that. And the question of, well, have you experienced his works, isn't really even asked. It's just, well, do you understand the theology of it?
Right.
And it's intellectual. Well, they were astonished at not him just saying, well, here's some things about God. He says, let me demonstrate the things about God supernaturally. And wow, this is amazing. That they use the word amazing. It's remarkable. Right? It's fantastic. But not only that, but he's also speaking what? Wisdom, application, understanding of this, so that we both understand it, receive it, walk in the wisdom of it, and realize the supernatural isn't just arbitrary, and it isn't absent of wisdom and truth. Because he said, I teach you things to seek not only, what do you have to say about this particular thing, but all that you have to say about this particular thing. So that, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that's good. I think that just thinking in terms of him growing us in that too, and then almost building a wisdom bank, as we him in these, I picture him continuing to impart wisdom that then, builds on itself into other situations that lay foundation for future supernatural things as well.
Right. That's right. And we have a great example, with, think about Joshua, when he was, going into the promised land, and they went to the first city, Jericho, had fantastic supernatural thing happen. They blew the trumpet, went around the city 7 days, 7 times, and the walls fall in, and they defeat them. And so the next one is, well, since we saw that happen,
right,
and this other one isn't even nearly as powerful as Jericho. They're small, they're dinky. We can win this by ourselves. Let's go. And of course they get defeated soundly. Comes back, and he's sad, like, man, this didn't work, and I guess it's over. And God says, well, don't assume the supernatural as a independent thing of things that are going on that I need to help you understand, and all of it.
Wisdom I need to give you.
All of it is going to follow you walking with me along the path of truth, of understanding, of all that I'm up to, which involves you. And he said, in this case, he said, you already missed something that I thought you learned, and that is, don't make your own assumptions.
Right.
I think you better ask me first.
I think what you're describing there, that's an important thing where people really struggle, or what I've heard of, and people struggling with the supernatural is, okay, I'm going to go all in and just believe God for the supernatural. And so then they go to this place of still not asking for the wisdom and just assuming. And then when the supernatural doesn't just drop the way they thought it was going to, they feel like their faith has gone belly up.
Right.
And they don't know what to do with that.
Right. Because
so what you're talking about is a really important thing of this wisdom and the supernatural, and how God uses both and.
Right. And we're going to talk about this as it relates to faith, because what you just described is what I call a false sense of faith, and that is this.
Well, and out of a good place. I mean, people land there out of a true heart to desire.
Yeah. I'd like to realize that they're supernatural. I'd like to realize that it isn't just natural. I tend to be in the natural. So I've seen and I've been around a little bit that. So I tell you what, I'm going to believe for the supernatural, and I'm declaring that I believe the supernatural. I got a problem. God, take care of it. And my faith should get me there, right? And of course, it doesn't happen. And God says, well, you kind of got it backwards. You can't set yourself up in a false sense of faith. Faith isn't declaring something that you want to have happen and then saying, I believe it. Mm-hmm. It's the other way around. It's, Father, what do you have to say about this? Mm-hmm. Help me receive it, and then give me the faith to believe it, including the wisdom that comes along with it. So like with Joshua, he said, well, you didn't ask me, one. So he said, I'd like you to learn that. And then two is, had you asked me, I would have said, before we can go and experience the next supernatural, you got sin in the camp. Mm-hmm. And it's got to be cleaned up. We're not going any further until this piece of wisdom is dealt with, and then you can understand it. And when you follow it, now we can go to the next piece of the supernatural, because you needed to know something that was going on that I care about. And by the way, this has a lot to do with our hearts and our understanding is, well, I know you would like this problem resolved. And by the way, I have the power to do it, and I want to do it. However, there's something going on inside of you that I'd like to deal with first. And it's really important because I care about you personally, and I care about your heart, and I care about your ability to have the ability to follow me. And, you have unforgiveness in your heart. And before we go and let me do the supernatural thing, would you be willing to let me give you wisdom about this? Because they go hand in hand. And that's what we're trying to say here, is that it's not just the supernatural by itself. It's the supernatural along with the wisdom of all that God wants to say, so that it's not just, hey, I got a thing happening, I need you to take care of this, solve it supernaturally, would you? It's really, would you guide me and show me everything you need to show me about it, and what wisdom and what's going on and what things are important to you. And I'm good with that. And I want to receive it, because the supernatural and wisdom go hand in hand. And we're going to talk more about this with real examples. And that was something that, as I was learning it, that's the big layer of the piece that he put in to say, in addition to, I know you're learning supernatural, but you need to learn wisdom along with it. And I'm going to be doing both. I'm going to be speaking both. And don't put me in a system, and don't put me in a box, but just let me guide you into all truth about the whole thing, and be open to something that I want to share with you about that, if you have a heart to hear it. And the more and more I pursued that, the more and more I understood it. And by the way, it's a freeing thing, because the burden is on him, not me. I just have to be a receiver of it.
You just have to stay with him and receive it.
So we'll pick this up again. We have more as we talk about wisdom down the road here, but we'll try to highlight what does that really look like, and how do we receive both the supernatural in light of the wisdom that he's going to give us, and we get to grow in both. And here they kind of understood it. It's both wisdom and it's demonstration, and they kind of go hand in hand. So it's kind of fun.
Beautiful. Great. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for joining us, everyone. Look forward to seeing you again next time. Have a great day.
Yeah, see you then.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.